Right now, let's bring in Dr. Alan Diehl. He's a former NTSB investigator.
All right. Do we have you, Doctor?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
And incidentally, I also worked for the FAA and the Pentagon, but that's another story.
All right.
Hey, we wish we could keep you forever.
Right. He's had a lot of important positions there.
Right. Okay, let's dive right in. I wanted to ask you, so the investigation here is just in its beginning stages. So I'm just curious here, when you first saw the video of the collision, what did you take from that, especially being a former NTSB investigator? What did your brain do? What did you see?
Well, I guess there was certainly one red flag, and you know, we all saw the video of the helicopter coming in from the north, which is from the left to the right, striking the American Airlines original jet. But I noticed there was another aircraft that was airborne in that vicinity at the time. And I know I've flown in and out of Reagan Airport as a pilot, okay? The FAA has a fleet of airplanes there. I flew in and out of there many times. And a lot of times, just in general, it's hard to know which airplane the controller is talking about, especially at night, and especially if there's a lot of city lights around behind the both airplanes, both the American Airlines aircraft and the other aircraft that's in the video. And so my reaction is I wonder, and I stress the word wonder, if maybe the Army pilots weren't looking at the wrong airplane, and that's very understandable how that could happen.
Dr. Diehl, can you walk us through the sort of early stages of this investigation? Are investigators walking in with a sort of theory that they're trying to either prove or disprove, or are they allowing sort of the facts to take them where it will take them?
The latter. You know, I'm free. I'm not an NTSB investigator anymore, but they always let the evidence guide them, and I'm free to speculate. And it's not like they don't have any clue as to what might have happened, but they look very carefully at the evidence and follow the facts. And you know, many times this theory, like the one I just threw out about looking at the wrong airplane, turns out to be wrong. Unfortunately, that Black Hawk I don't think had a so-called cockpit voice recorder. It had other electronic recording devices, but it would have been very handy to know what the two helicopter pilots were talking about. And of course, the other thing that the Secretary of Defense mentioned is they had night vision goggles aboard the Black Hawk, and that's significant. I've flown in helicopters with night vision goggles. I'm not a helicopter pilot, but it really limits your vision. I'm not saying they used them. That's what the NTSB, with the help of the Pentagon, will have to establish. But if they were using night vision goggles, that could have complicated their ability, if you will, to spot the other two aircraft.
Look, we know that this is a tight, well-controlled airspace, of course. You know, you've flown in and out of this airport as a pilot. How would you just describe it to us, that experience of trying to land a plane in such a controlled environment?
Well, you know, it's a difficult dance. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not trying to be too flip because of the 67 fatalities. But it's almost like a dance where, you know, the controllers have to maintain what they call the picture of where all the planes are. And by the same token, the pilots really have to work with each other, and they try to cooperate, space out if they have to, slow down if they have to allow people to get off the runway. Of course, you have those basically three intersecting runways. So, you know, everyone would like to use the long runway, the north-south runway, and that's where the airliner originally was headed when the controllers, probably because of other traffic, told them, no, land on runway 33, which is to the northwest. So, you know, it's a complicated dance, and you have to be willing to work very closely with the controllers, and, of course, you're watching for other traffic, and when you're in the landing phase, you know, you're very busy. In this case, they were landing on a different runway, so they probably had to reprogram a couple of their computers to help them properly land. I'm not qualified to fly the regional jet, but I'm sure everybody was very busy, and unfortunately, things just came together, in this particular instance to lead to a tragedy.
Dr. Diehl, there might be folks at home that aren't fully aware of the expertise of investigators, NTSB investigators, and what they do. For those at home that are sort of concerned that they may not get the sort of definitive answer that they're looking for, what can you tell us about the men and women that make up the NTSB?
Well, the actual civil servants at NTSB come in a variety of skills and backgrounds. I happen to be an aviation psychologist. I'm also a pilot, and in fact, I survived a plane crash myself, which got me interested in the whole field. But they have physiologists, they have metallurgists, they have people that specialize in reading data recorders, and air traffic controllers. So they have every imaginable specialty within the NTSB. But the NTSB also relies very heavily on the manufacturers and controllers that are out there controlling traffic on a daily basis. So they don't make all the decisions themselves. They have what they call the party system. So they'll bring in the union, they'll bring in the Army pilots so that they can understand exactly the unique requirements of the job and what may have gone wrong that particular time and situation.
Dr. Diehl, a quick question for you. I was just wondering, we were talking about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. During this press conference with President Donald Trump, he had said essentially flat out that mistakes were made. And again, from your past as an investigator, is that unusual to see, I guess, accountability or blame being placed that soon on?
Yeah, to be honest, I was surprised that they did make those pronouncements. I mean, clearly their mistakes were made, but I think the implication was that somehow the Army pilots should not have hit the airliner. Well, obviously they shouldn't, but normally the executive part of the federal government withholds any statements. It's almost like a criminal investigation. You don't want to influence the fact-finding process. So I was a little surprised that there were pronouncements about what might have gone wrong, and we're all familiar with the DEI suggestions that were thrown out. So, but the one thing about the NTSB, Congress set that up to be independent. So I have great faith that they will fulfill their charter and do a thorough and independent job of assessing the facts and coming to logical conclusions. And of course, this will take weeks, months, or maybe longer before they release their final report. Under international law, they have to release an initial preliminary report within 30 days. So we'll know things fairly quickly, but the final report will be months in coming, I'm sure.
And no doubt that preliminary report will at least give us some important information that we don't have right now. Dr. Alan Diehl, thank you so much. We appreciate it. You can expect more from WUSA 9 on this breaking news. For updates anytime, download the WUSA 9 mobile app on your phone and watch us anytime for free on WUSA 9 Plus.